Your Excellency, President Zelensky, distinguished lawyers, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin for inviting me to this crucial conference. Ukraine continues the military fight on the battlefield. Ukraine must and will win. Russia will lose and be held accountable for the crime of aggression, the gravest crime in international law, the mother crime. Our task is in this conference to prepare for bringing Russia to account. We will discuss the various options on why one of the options is better than the other option. I have 24 years of experience as a judge in international courts. And like I say, that they are all better than doing nothing. Silence from the international community, from international law, would be a green light to every dictator in the world, to every terrorist. It would be the wrong signal. Also, we must do something to bring Russia to account. I have also experience as a Latvian, whose country experienced occupation, killings, deportations, dictatorship by Russia for 50 years. Justice never came for our victims. It never came also for the victims of Ukrainian Holodomor. So today, we can change this pattern. We must finally hold Russia accountable for its crimes. From the Russian leadership to every Russian soldier who kills, rapes, loots, destroys. Later, we will discuss the appropriate mechanisms for bringing Russia to account. The legal community is creative. We not only refer to precedents, but we create them. We created special international tribunals for Rwanda, for Lebanon, for former Yugoslavia, amongst others. We created the Nuremberg Tribunal by only 4 states, but with a huge impact to the development of international law. This is legally possible. All what is now required is the political will. I am encouraged by the growing political will, by the growing momentum to create a special international tribunal. For example, by the European Parliament in its resolution of the 19th January and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe in its resolution of the 26th of January this year. Both institutions, which are representing the democratic states in Europe and their peoples, clearly support such a special tribunal. Also, there is a growing political will in Europe, in the West. Outside Europe, outside the West, we politicians still have work to do. The so-called global South is quite diverse. Some are under political and economic pressure from Russia. Some see the war as a local European problem with an element of Schadenfreude. However, there is hope, as the recent votes in the United Nations General Assembly show. The world is slowly losing its fear from Russia. Ukraine has lost all fear. Now Russia must be afraid for the crimes it has committed. Dear friends and colleagues, the next panel would examine the various global accountability mechanisms in place or under consideration to ensure justice for atrocity crimes. The war of aggression started by Russia presents existential threats to international peace and security and the rules-based international order. Such behavior must be met with the most determined response so that the signal is clear: aggression towards or military invasion of another sovereign state is not tolerated. We commend Ukraine for its skills in using all available mechanisms under international law to respond to Russia's aggression and assure state responsibility and individual liability. The use of this mechanism reaffirms their relevance and proves that international law has tools to respond to the breaches of international law. At present, 3 international mechanisms have already started to evaluate Russia's state responsibilities. First, Ukraine is seeking a determination by the International Court of Justice that Russia has distorted the so-called Genocide Convention from 1948 and used the false claims of genocide being committed in Ukraine as a pretext for the military invasion. Latvia is a state party to the Genocide Convention and has a genuine interest to the interpretation of this convention regarding abusive allegations of genocide. For this reason, Latvia has submitted to the ICJ a declaration intervening as a third party in this case. Second, Ukraine has submitted an interstate application to the European Court of Human Rights and seeks determination by this court that Russia has violated the European Convention on Human Rights. Latvia is intervening as a third party in this case as well. And third, the issue of compensation of damages inflicted by Russia. We note that work on the creation of the Register of Damages, as well as efforts to establish a legal basis for the use of frozen Russian assets for the reconstruction of Ukraine and for reparations to Ukraine. Turning to the individual liability. In parallel to the state responsibility, individual liability for the most serious crimes of international concern must also be ensured. The international community has conferred the jurisdiction over these crimes, crime of aggression, war crimes, crime against humanity and genocide, to the International Criminal Court in Hague. We consider the International Criminal Court as a major achievement in international law, and we pledge for our full support to the ICC. Latvia has provided voluntary financial contribution to the International Criminal Court, has seconded experts, and is looking for other ways to assist the International Criminal Court. However, we must admit that because of the way the amendments of the International Criminal Court statute, so-called Rome Statute, regarding the crime of aggression are drafted, the International Criminal Court cannot exercise its jurisdiction over this crime if committed by Russian nationals. Therefore, currently, no international mechanism can exercise jurisdiction over the crime of aggression committed now against Ukraine. This is unacceptable. The crime of aggression is a source of other core international crimes currently being investigated by the International Criminal Court. And therefore, this gap must be closed. Two conclusions follow. First, we must close this gap for the future, and therefore think of amending the Rome Statute, the Statute of International Criminal Court, to this effect. Second, and most importantly, we must close this gap with respect to the crime committed now against Ukraine. Already on the 2nd March 2022, the United Nations General Assembly condemned Russia's aggression against Ukraine, thus determining that there has been an aggression. Therefore, we must create a legitimate mechanism to ensure accountability for this crime of aggression against Ukraine. Throughout history, the international community has always found creative and innovative ways to address atrocity crimes in order to ensure accountability and the rule of law. Together, we have created international tribunals for crimes committed during the Second World War in former Yugoslavia, Rwanda, etc. These tribunals did great work by investigating and adjudicating war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and crimes against peace. In some ways, our current task is easier. We need a new solution for addressing only one crime. We already have an internationally agreed definition of that crime of aggression. In other ways, this task is more complex, both legally and politically. Historically, two types of special tribunals can be identified: international tribunals and hybrid tribunals. The International Criminal Court for the former Yugoslavia, for example, was international tribunal, and extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia, for example, it could be regarded as hybrid tribunal. But we cannot copy all these precedents. We can certainly draw inspirations from them, but we cannot copy. We should create something new. We should develop international law. This is a time for developing of international law in the case of Russia's aggression against Ukraine. It must be also recalled that the crime of aggression is a leadership crime. Therefore, any mechanism we create for the crime of aggression must be able to ensure accountability of the Russian leadership. This inevitably raises the questions of immunities and whether there are ways to create a legal basis for legitimate exceptions to the personal immunities to the top state leadership. In this regard, the conclusion of the International Court of Justice in the arrest warrant case regarding possible exceptions from personal immunities could serve as guidance. Latvia, alongside other like-minded states, believes that an ad hoc international tribunal under the auspices of the United Nations can ensure accountability of the Russian leadership. Drawing from precedents, we suggest to establish an ad hoc international tribunal by concluding an agreement between the UN Secretary General and Ukraine based on a UN General Assembly resolution, as it was done in the case of Cambodia. We consider that it would be possible, since the UN General Assembly has determined that there has been an act of aggression by Russia, and the International Court of Justice in its case law has previously concluded that the UN General Assembly has certain competence regarding the maintenance of peace and security. Nevertheless, we should not forget also other possibilities. I will not go deeper into that. But first, we should try through the General Assembly of the United Nations. An international tribunal created under the auspices of the United Nations would provide the strongest international legitimacy and would allow exemptions from personal immunities in line with ICJ and ICC case law. All we need for the creation of such a tribunal and for ensuring full accountability is determination and political will. Finally, we must bear in mind that Belarus has also allowed Russia to use its territory to perpetrate an act of aggression against Ukraine. We therefore must also address the accountability of Belarus. Dear friends and colleagues, the establishment of such a special tribunal is needed for two reasons. First, it is necessary in order to do justice for Ukraine. And second, this is necessary in order not to damage the standard of international law already reached in 1945 by UN Charter, which forbids aggressive wars. In such a case, the world would fall back into military anarchy. No one wants to live in such a world. Therefore, establishing of such a tribunal is in the interest not only for Ukraine, but of the whole international community, for the whole world. Thank you for your attention.